Good day, my fellow Canadians. We're at war. I kind of knew it, and I didn't want to confront it, but it's almost inescapable now. We are at war. Canada is under attack by the federal government. Canadian institutions, Canadian values, Canadian traditions are all under attack by the federal government. Farmers are under attack by the federal government. The oil and gas industry is under attack by the federal government. The transportation industry is under attack by the federal government. A friend sent me a video. Many of us have seen Chrystia Freeland being cursed out with pretty hard language in Alberta. I was of two minds about that. Was the guy wrong? No. Was he undiplomatic or harsh? Yes. But a friend sent me a video and apparently explains why Chrystia Freeland was in Alberta. Catch this. If it's true, she was there to sign a mandate for the sake of a caribou herd, that they are going to expand what is currently now a protected preserve, protected land. They're going to expand it, according to the lady, by four times its size, under the pretext of protecting caribou. To the best of my knowledge, caribou are not an endangered species, either in Canada or globally. But what this will do, this will shut down. If you have farmland, you won't be able to farm it because it'll be protected land. If you have an oil well or a business on that land, you're gone because it will now be protected land. Not because it's necessary for any reason. It's a war. It is a war. They are at war with the trucking industry. Look at what they've done to the fuel prices. Look what they did to the Freedom Convoy. They are at war with the farmers. Cattle, pigs, chickens. They're pushing this agenda about vegetable-based or plant-based or bug-based meat substitutes. Bug-based? You want to eat bugs? You go ahead. You can have my share. I'll have a nice prime rib. Thank you very much. They're at war with the oil and gas industry. They have put in so many roadblocks to prevent Canada's developing our domestic energy industry. These are all very obvious. They're pushing the EV thing. I won't get into electric vehicles and the false narratives that are being pushed. The evidence is out there if anybody chooses to examine it. My brother made a very good point. Just one little digression here. Think about this. Given Canada's distances, and anybody who's driven any distance, me personally here in Ontario, drive up to Thunder Bay, drive up to Nipigon, drive to Belleville, drive anywhere in this country, and especially in the prairies, where you have these very great distances between settlements and towns and cities. Can you imagine you're in an electric vehicle in a Canadian winter and you get caught in a whiteout or a traffic jam or a snowstorm or a traffic accident in winter? You have to keep that car running to keep the heat going. And we all know what cold does to batteries. Australia is having the same problem, by the way. Vast distances, and they're pushing the electric vehicles. And what do you need to charge an electric vehicle? Golly gosh, you need electricity. energy that has to be generated to charge the vehicle as the energy saver. Right. So let's get away from that, but back to this war that we're under. Everything that made Canada Canada is being eroded by the current government. Is this part of an insidious global agenda? I don't know. I don't sit in the corridors of power. I can't sit there and say, yes, this is a globalist agenda. They're disarming Canadians. That worries me. This protected lands, apparently, they're putting environmental protection officers is going to be a whole new class. They're going to come under the classification, apparently, of law enforcement. They're going to be rolled in. They will be armed. And if the lady is right with what she posted, there's going to be detention camps for resistors. Hark back to the days of Soviet totalitarianism, anybody? Scares the hell out of me if it's true, and I put that proviso in there, if this is true. But I've been watching what's going on, and it's a terrible thing for me to admit that the Canada I loved is gone. It's not dead, but it's dying. Unless we get a common sense government back in place, Canada as Canada will cease to exist. I've said this before, and I'm watching this more and more. And they seem to double down on stupidity. Again, if this video is true, what I find astounding is the silence out of the mainstream media. Now, we all know the mainstream media are just a bunch of bought and paid for liberal whores. They're not media anymore. The mainstream media are prostitutes. They've sold their morality, they've sold their ethics to the federal government. And now, of course, the federal government is trying to shut down free speech on the internet. Now, with all these things they're doing, I think the thing that bothers me the most is the overt gaslighting. Now, anybody who knows where that term came from knows the movie Gaslight, the old black and white. What basically gaslighting means, for those of you who are unaware of the term, in the movie, the gentleman was trying to drive the lady insane by making her doubt the evidence of her own eyes. So what you see overtly in front of you, they tell you overtly that what you are seeing is not what you are seeing. The reality that you are seeing is not real. The facts that you are seeing are not factual. The truth you are seeing is not truthful. This is what gaslighting is, and they're doing it right in front of your face. No, we support the truckers while they're eroding the trucking industry with the carbon taxes, driving up food prices, driving up transportation prices, making life harder and more unaffordable for Canadians. We support the truckers. This is Chrystia Freeland. We support the farmers. Again, the carbon tax, you know how much it costs for farm machinery? How much petroleum they need to keep the farm equipment going, because you can't have electric vehicles you can't have combine harvesters, tractors, and heavy farm equipment running off electricity. The war they're in with the oil and gas industry, did you see Trudeau's actually saying we support the oil and gas sector, while they have put in every possible roadblock to developing domestic energy sources? And if anything has shown Canada what we need, look at the Russian-Ukrainian war and look at Russia's doing, what the blackmail is doing with their energy production. Turning off the taps to Germany and the Nord Stream. Oh, we have to turn it off for maintenance. Yeah, right. It's petroleum blackmail is what it is. Energy blackmail. We could be totally self-sufficient in terms of energy under a solid and intelligent national energy policy. The pipelines should be built. Look at the hands-off policy of the government when it comes to protesters. On one hand, Trudeau knelt with the Black Lives Matter, but have a Canadian protest, the Freedom Convoy, bring in the cops. War. At war with the Canadian people. And now, of course, they've proven that the Emergency Measures Act had no basis in fact and should never have been implemented. They're at war. The government, this government is at war with its people. Look at the punishment of Tamara Leach. Tamara Leach. What did she do that was so egregious that she was doing the time she was doing in jail, the absolute massively intrusive bail conditions? This was a punitive measure undertaken, lawfare, at its very most obvious. And what it was, and I said this in a previous post, this had nothing to do with crime. Tamara Leach's crime was she embarrassed the government and actually had the nerve to speak up. And for this, they punished her. Now, you want to see abuse of power? Think about that. What the federal government is doing to anybody who speaks up against them. They will punish you punitively. They went after Ezra Levant for his book, The Libranos. Look how they went after, they haven't gone after True North Media too egregiously yet, but boy, did they go after the rebel. That's lawfare. And what it is, and it's very simple, anybody with any life experience looks at that, and what you've got are a bunch of power elites sitting there saying, who the hell do you think you are? You're going to speak up against me? I'll show you who's boss. You just wait, you little nobody. We'll show you who has the power. Not because they did anything illegal. This is going to be exercised from a state of violated ego. Canada is at war. It's not a shooting war, but it's going to come down to it. Why are they so assiduously attempting to disarm the Canadian public? And the lies, again, the gaslighting, everything they have claimed has been disproven internationally. The whole narrative about public safety has been proven to be a pure, utter, total crock of shit. All the evidence, all the factual evidence shows that what they are doing will not create a safer society. It will not make Canadians safer. It will increase the crime rate. And then the Liberals will say, oh, we didn't do anything wrong. Our problem was we didn't go far enough. We have to enact more legislation. Look at England, look at Australia, look at New Zealand, and Australia and England particularly. This spectacular failure of their firearms legislation. And what do the Liberals do? Look at a spectacular failure, spin it around, and then give it their own twist. And make claims that are so easily disproven by anybody who will do even a modicum of independent or objective research. So yes, we're at war. We're fighting to get a Canada that we can trust, we can believe in, a government we can trust, we can believe in, and a Canada that once again we can be proud of. This government is at war with NATO. Look at the shameless pandering, the ass-kissing that Trudeau does to China. China. I won't go on again about that. Anybody, again, who's done any research. China's ambitions for domination. China's designs on the Canadian Arctic, like Russia's. And what is Trudeau doing for national defense? 100 million for some LGBTQ panel, or 200 million of your taxpayers' dollars. There's money well spent, right? He has divided us, this government. He calls the Conservatives divisive. Talk about the pot calling the kettle black. It is the most divisive government in history. He has divided us among provincial lines, racial lines, ethnic lines. They have done that. And yet, it's Harper's fault. Right. So, people, there is an election coming. Michelle Rempel Garner did a very good post, and I'm wondering, she's very politically savvy. Trudeau has been relatively quiet in his castigation of Pierre Poilievre. which is unusual for the Liberals, because normally when you see somebody who poses a threat to their power, they've got the mainstream media lined up like a pack of ravening hounds trying to tear them to pieces with, again, lies, gaslighting, egregious and specious narratives. And they're not doing that. And she's postulated that perhaps Trudeau, like his father, seeing the damage he's done to Canada, seeing the writing on the wall that he's finished, is going to, just before the election, hand over the reins to somebody else and step down. So that he doesn't take the hit when the Liberals collapse. Then, just like Pierre Elliott says, well, the Liberals collapse, it wasn't under my watch. Mulroney did that, if you recall, with the Conservatives. After he thoroughly screwed everything up, he just dumped it onto Kim Campbell so that she'd take the hit as the Prime Minister who was at the helm when the Conservative Party was decimated. Smitherman did the same thing with Ontario Health. He stepped down, handed the reins to an underling, so the underling would be the front man for the disaster, for the failure of that department. There's a common political ploy. So is Trudeau going to step down prior to the next election? I don't think it'll make a damn bit of difference. At least I hope and pray it won't. The Freedom Convoy has galvanized, I think, the Canadian people like we have never been galvanized before. And not only galvanized us nationally, look at what it did internationally. And the international condemnation and castigation of Trudeau and his Liberal government, of his totalitarian dictatorial style. I think we have a change coming to this country. And I think this war can end if we vote smart, if we vote Conservative, if we get off our collective Canadian asses. 46%, 46% of eligible voters never even bothered to show up in the last election. To me, it's maddening, but more than anything else, it's sad. It is really, to me, heartbreaking that so many people did not. Pardon me. So, my fellow Canadians, take heart. I think better days are coming.